Bring this bag. Bring this bag which is there.
Okay, good morning, everyone. We have 27 people on the call. I'll keep admitting people as they arrive. But just wanted to say a very warm welcome. It's interesting because this virtual open day we're running is one of many. But I think this is the first time we've had existing Fairgreen parents as well as new parents. If I could ask
This
you
one,
to
this Mama's cookies. This Mama's cookies.
I'm going to mute you all, and then maybe Malcolm can unmute himself for a moment. Okay, so this morning's session is sort of twofold, really. It's a chance to learn a little bit about Fairgreen International School if you're not a Fairgreen parent, but it's also an opportunity to hear about the IB and the benefits of the IB, and we're very, very lucky to have one of the global experts about the IB to join us this morning. So I'm just going to introduce Malcolm Nicholson to you. So Malcolm and I have known each other for a long time. I was principal at the International School of The Hague when Malcolm was one of our parents. And we go back quite a long way. We share a love of international education. We also share a love of football or soccer if you're from across in the US. We both support really terrible, unsuccessful teams. So we're united in our disappointment of our football teams, but we're also united in our real excitement and passion for international education. Malcolm led the team that actually wrote the MYP, or the Middle Years Program, that you'll hear a little bit about in a moment. He was also worldwide head of MYP development, and he was also head of diploma program development as well. So there are very few people in the world who have more experience and more passion for the International Baccalaureate. Just give me 1 second, I'm just gonna admit there's a load of people joining us now, we're on 34. I'm very happy to call Malcolm a really good friend, but I'm also very proud that Malcolm is a strong supporter of Fairgreen International School. He's been with us as an advisor from the very beginning when we started on a different campus before we relocated here to the Sustainable City. So without any further ado, I'm going to hand over to Malcolm now. We wish you were here with us, Malcolm, but I know you're in the UK, a few degrees cooler than it is here, but it's great to see you, and thanks very much for joining us this morning. Over to you.
Thanks, Graham, and thank you everybody for welcoming me into the community again. It's wonderful to see you all, and as Graham said, it would have been lovely to have actually been there with you. Looking at my little gadget, it's currently 14 degrees Celsius here, and not quite light, and it's 8 in the morning, so autumn is well and truly upon us here. But never mind, it's a warm welcome to you, and I hope you have an opportunity to learn about the IB and feel that you want to learn more afterwards. It was a lovely introduction from Graham. I thought he was about to say that I was a student of his in the primary school at the International School of The Hague. And although there's obviously a few, as you can see from the visuals, a few decades between us, I was actually a parent there and not a student. And yeah, as Graham said, I worked for many years at the IB, 8 years. 5 years of those were based in The Hague, 3 in Cardiff at the IB's assessment centre there. And I was responsible for all of the curriculum and assessment development in both the MYP and the IB diploma. So they are two of the programs that I'll be talking about today, as well as talking about the continuum of the 4 IB programs. So that's just a little bit of my background. I've taught around the world a little bit, UK, Bahamas, Thailand, and I now run my own company, and I'm lucky enough to get to work with Fairgreen and other schools. So first of all, we're going to be talking obviously about the IB, the International Baccalaureate. But what is the IB? What do you know about the IB? And what would you like to know? What are you curious about? Please, if you have questions or if there's anything right now that you're wondering, please stick it in the chat box. I'll send a message there right now. You'll notice I can't write and type at the same time, but you can think and write. So if you have questions, please pop them into the chat box at any time and I'll address them. But initially, what do you want to know? What are you really curious about when you think of the IB? What do you think about? What do you want to know? So that I can make sure that anything that you're curious about will be covered while we're going through the slides. Obviously, I have some prepared slides, but I can deviate to address any of your individual personal needs. And if I can't, then my colleagues at Fairgreen can follow up. And thank you, Madeleine, the very first question, the competitive advantage of the IB compared to others. That's fantastic. I will cover all of that part during the presentation. And if you, Madeleine, feel at the end that I haven't answered your question, please pick me up on it and make sure I do. So thank you very much for those and keep the questions coming. So next point then. What is the IB? There's some things that make the IB very, very different. And by the way, when we say IB, we mean International Baccalaureate. You will have heard people talk about IBO. Well, IBO is the business branch, if you like, the organization. But we refer to the IB refers to itself as the IB. It's not for profit. It has offices in the legal entity is in Geneva, small office, then in The Hague, Cardiff, Washington, and Singapore. But the main important piece that's important for you to understand at this stage is that what differentiates the IB from any other organization is that it is mission driven. It has a very clear mission, and its mission is described on its website if you care to look at it. It's 3 paragraphs long, but essentially it's to make the world a better, a more peaceful place through education. A better, a more peaceful, and a more sustainable place through education. So that makes it very different to College Board, Cambridge, and other providers of international curricula. It has a mission that it wants to change the world, it wants to change the children while it does that. But how does it do that? It has 4 programs. You may have heard of some of them or all of them, or you may have heard people talk about, I'm doing the IB. Well, the IB is actually 4 different programs. So this is how the IB sees itself. We have the mission statement I've just described, making the world a better, more peaceful place, which is then unpacked into what's known as the learner profile, which we'll talk about a little bit shortly. And then a series of standards and practices, which are essentially the rules and requirements that schools must follow in order to deliver 4 programs. And going from the left with the yellow, that's the PYP, Primary Years Program for age 3 to 11. Then the MYP, Middle Years Program for 11 to 16. DP is the Diploma Program, age 16 to 19. And then the CP, Career Related Program, which is also aimed at the 16 to 19 age group. And thank you, by the way, Nora, for your questions come in. We will talk a little bit about universities, although we don't have precise percentages to give. So this is an overview of what the IB is and how it relates to the mission. Now, this is how the IB represents those 4 programs. These are what are known as program models. They describe what each of the program is, what it does, and how it does it. The fact that they're all circles is now to demonstrate that they're all the same shape and they're all working towards the same thing. Now, if you have a look at these, and hopefully you can see them in some detail, just stick in the chat box. What do you see? What do you think? What do you wonder as you look at that? This is how the IB describes each of its 4 programs. What do you see, think, and wonder as you look at those? In many you might notice that there's something that's similar across them in the heart. It looks like casino chips. Thank you. They all have the same center. Yeah, now that is really interesting. Student-centered and growing. I like that. That's a very, very good one. Yellow, get ready. That, you know, I was at the IB when we created these, and nobody ever thought yellow, get ready, but they should have. That is brilliant. I like that. Yeah, although I was there at the time we designed these, I never knew why the different colors were chosen. So maybe yellow, get ready was what was behind it. Fantastic. So yeah, what you may be noticing, yellow, get ready is a wonderful way to think of it, but they're growing. You've got the student in the center and they're growing out from that center and student-centered. And again, that is one of the hallmarks of the IB programs or the IB's frameworks of programs here, so that students can be put at the very center. It's not about getting students to a particular stage in life and moving them on. It's really, really friendly to them and about them. And thanks, Dave, for sharing some information on universities there. So, having thought a little bit about what the programs are, we will unpack those a little bit further as we go, because these actual program models are worth, if you're really interested in learning more about the programs, dissecting the one that is relevant to you and thinking what's in them. And we will look from the center out during this presentation. But many of you may be wondering, well, you know, as one of the previous questions said, is the IB recognized? Is it an entity in the world? What's its power? Well, it's huge. The IB has grown to be really, really huge. Over 5,000 IB schools in the world. And the knock-on effect of having so many schools in the world in these 4 programs is that what you see is that universities are increasingly wanting IB students, because as I'll mention later, the research shows that IB students do really well at universities and they stick around. They don't give up. They're resilient and independent learners. So universities are seeing the power of this block of people. And Nasreen has just said, I read that IB is the fastest growing track in the US. Yes, it is. And Nasreen, you may be surprised to hear that actually it's in many of the poorest communities that it's growing really quickly, because the federal government, particularly under the previous administration, recognized that the IB was a way to increase aspirations. Oh, you lost audio. Well, hopefully some people can hear me. That actually the low socioeconomic areas of the US have been receiving federal funds to develop IB programs. So the IB has actually had a huge impact in the USA with some of the poorest communities. And you know, the IB is genuinely international. It's recognized all over the world. And yeah, and we know, for example, the previous administration, Mr. Obama was a big fan of the IB. I'm not sure what Mr. Trump thinks of the IB, actually. We don't know that. Anyway, at the very center of each of the programs, you'll have noticed that child, the images of the child. And that notes down, that's really denoting the IB's learner profile. And that's at the center of each program. And that is one of the keys that makes the IB different, is that it's the mission statement unpacked into 10 attributes or traits. So that every IB program works hard to develop learners who are knowledgeable, risk takers, caring, open-minded, creative, because what the IB programs are about is developing learners who are global citizens, that they can be adaptable and flexible to go into situations and circumstances in their home countries, in their home cultures, or around the world, and be global citizens who can speak more than one language and interact and appreciate the situation that they're in. And to do that, you have to deliberately and explicitly teach students to be open-minded, balanced, reflective, and so on. And the IB programs all have structures in place to enable that. So really, it's about developing international mindedness, if you remember that was part of those program models, and to become global citizens. And it's from the very center of each program model with the IB's learner profile that we do that in pursuit of that mission of the IB. But what does an IB student look like? Well, you might look at this picture and think, that does not look like my child. Well, sadly, I'm not great at drawing students, or drawing anything for that matter, but this is a representation of what an IB student in any of the 4 programs does end up looking like. They are developing matters of the heart, the mind, the soul, the body. These are holistic programs that pay attention not just to getting students through a program so that they can pass a set of examinations to go to another place. They really care about developing the whole child. Their attitudes, their attributes, their skills, their knowledge, their understanding. And you'll see all the words here that are really, really useful. We want students to be global citizens who are team players, who are communicators, resilient, independent, curious, thoughtful, sociable, conscientious. It's not just about developing the knowledge to get to the next stage of education. It really is about the whole child. And this is what embodies an IB student. So although your children may not look like these badly drawn children, these are the types of attributes that I'm sure that you value. And we know for sure that universities and employers value these. I have friends who run very large companies in the northeast of England, very close to where Graham grew up in the 1940s, and that have got vacancies and have had vacancies for years that they can't fill because they're looking for people who have initiative, who are independent workers. It's not just about the knowledge. They're looking for people who are communicators, collaborators, and can get on with it. What they're finding is that they can get people who know the technical side, but who don't have those other skills. And that's what an IB education will bring you. It brings you the whole package. So as I say, the IB brings you something extra. If we look at these programs, you'll notice now, hopefully you'll see on the bottom of each circle is international mindedness. That's what we're doing, is we're developing children through these programs, through these frameworks. And it's a seamless transition across the programs, but there is something extra about an IB education. It's not just about doing the subjects and learning the knowledge. There is a lot more to it. And in terms of the knowledge and the subjects, I'm sure you're all interested. We'll talk about that later. If you want to research on the ibo.org website at some point, you'll see that each of the subjects are listed on here, and we'll talk about those in a moment. So how do these programs compare to others? Well, as I say, we're looking to develop global citizens. But how do these programs do it? And if you look at those models, you'll see there's a lot there. The learner profile we've talked about. Then there's approaches to learning skills. The IB, in each program you'll see on the circle next to the center, there's approaches to learning skills. Students are deliberately and explicitly taught these skills, or 21st century skills, if you like. And then the next piece of that circle is also approaches to teaching. It's the only set of programs in the world that actually looks at how it is taught. So the IB looks at not only what it is taught, but how it's taught. And that makes a huge difference to motivation. You know from your children, I know from my children, the difference that an exciting teaching methodology makes. IB programs are taught through inquiry and they're collaborative. The way in which students learn in IB programs is different to how I learned, certainly at school at my grand old age, where it was more rote learning and a delivery of knowledge, and I had to sit in a compliant fashion and listen. And if I could get the notes moved from the teacher's board onto my book, then it was successful. And I'd learned it because I'd written it down, apparently. What we now know about learning is that there are many different approaches to teaching that will work for each individual child. And in general, the programs are taught through an inquiry-based approach with a focus on concepts that are taught through a context. And that's the hallmark of all IB programs. So they're conceptual and they're taught in a context. We don't take an abstract notion. For example, if we're learning about commerce, and maybe you're in a British school, you might learn about a shopping centre in Birmingham, for example. Now, there's nothing wrong with Birmingham. I'm sure it's a lovely place, but I've never been. And probably the students in your class haven't been either. But if you're based in Dubai, from my recollection of Dubai, there are also shopping malls in Dubai. So you would contextualize your study of commerce so that it's something local and that the students can imagine and get involved with and buy into and be motivated by. Now, another part of the motivation of IB programs is the devotion to action and to service learning. All IB programs have components of service learning, doing something within the school community, your family community, or the local community. This helps to ground students in reality so that they can actually use their skills and show that their skills can be used in a real life situation. And it also relates to well-being, because the IB programs do pay attention to student well-being. And when you're giving of yourself and your time, it actually scientifically has been shown there is a relationship with happiness and well-being. Now, in terms of projects, there are ongoing projects as part of an inquiry-based learning. In all the programs, students will be doing some projects. But what's one of the most exciting parts of the IB programs is that we have culminating projects at the end of each. In the PYP, we have a PYP exhibition, which is a piece of group work where students work together to present on a particular issue of the world, which is usually an amazing thing to view. In the MYP, we'll have the personal project, where students will research into something that they're passionate about and produce a report. It's about an 8-month piece of work. And in the diploma program, there's an extended essay, a 4,000-word piece of independent research taking place over 6 months. What we find is that when students go to university, they've already developed those research skills and ability to do a long independent piece of work that many students from other backgrounds will not have done. And then in the career-related program, we have the reflective project where students look at the ethics around their work placements that they've done. Now, in terms of breadth, we have wonderful breadth in the programs. If you can see from the previous slide, you'll see that in the PYP, although there's generally speaking 6 subject groups there, the usual suspects, science, arts, mathematics, languages, and so on, they're taught through transdisciplinary themes, so that the PYP is a transdisciplinary program, which means that all the subjects can be taught through one unit devoted to the exploration of something of global worth. In the MYP, you'll see we have a broad range of subjects, 8 subject groups: languages A, language B, mathematics, arts, sciences, individuals and societies, physical health, education, and so on. In the IB diploma, we've got 6 subjects. Keeping it broad, students choose 3 high-level subjects and 3 standard-level subjects. In the IB diploma, it's also kept broad even further by the fact that they must, like in the other programs, do some service learning and the extended essay we just mentioned, but they must also study a course called Theory of Knowledge, TOK, which helps them to bring subjects together in an interdisciplinary way and to relate what they're learning into a framework of knowledge so that they understand actual construction of knowledge, almost like philosophy, but not the same. And then the career-related program, students will do at least 2 IB diploma subjects, maintaining that rigor, that academic rigor. They also have personal and social course to do. They have their reflective project, as I mentioned, as well as the placement that they do in the community with an alternative provider of vocational education. So in terms of the CP, there's a relationship between the school and a provider who will provide further vocational learning. So the DP is more the academic track, and the CP is the more vocational track, which does have that academic rigor built in through having 2 DP subjects. In addition, every student will do 2 languages, so at least. So there's a fantastic breadth. And one thing also to note is that the PYP and the MYP are known as frameworks. They do not have a set syllabus that is handed down by the IB. They provide a very strictly controlled framework, but then teachers will develop the context or the content that is appropriate for your local context. As I said, if you're in Dubai and you're doing commerce, then you might look more at shopping malls that are in Dubai rather than somewhere else, as an example. In the DP and the CP, the content is actually prescribed by the IB. And the last thing I wanted to mention here is the 6 Cs. It's something that comes from Michael Fullen, if you want to research that. And it's a great report that was released about 2 months ago by Microsoft. So whether you're skeptical about the contents of it or not, it's a really good read, and it's called Reimagining Education. And he refers to the 6 Cs that are important in the post-COVID world. His 6 Cs are actually 2 attributes and 4 sets of skills that we cover in the IB programs: character, citizenship, collaboration, creative thinking, critical thinking, and communication. The 6 Cs. And he has identified those. And I hope you notice from everything I've just been talking about, the IB well and truly covers those 6 Cs that will be crucial for the post-COVID world. And by the way, thanks to today for posting on the answering the questions. Very good of you, thanks. Now, what's the role of the parents? The parents obviously have a massive role. And while I was at the IB, we did some research on student well-being and stress and anxiety in the IB diploma, because there's no question the IB diploma is challenging. There's a lot to go on. And this is part of the role of the parent, is to know what your child is doing, to be aware of and knowledgeable about their program, if they're in the PYP or the MYP, DP or CP, to understand the program and the pressures they're under so that you can support their well-being. Because the research that we did when I was at the IB of over 2,000 students worldwide was that the greatest impact on supporting students and to helping them to have decent well-being is parental involvement. So that the students, even at the age of 17, 18, they can come home and they've got someone to talk to unload on. That's what they need, is someone to talk to if they're stressed. And it really helps if you can help them with prioritizing, time management, self-motivation, those kind of ideas. But what can you do as a PYP parent? As a PYP parent, your child will be full of questions. They will be questioning everything. So just chat to them every day. Talk to them about, what have you learned? How did you learn it? What did you do? Who did you work with? How did you feel? How did you enjoy it? How do you learn best? So that you can start to use some of the language of the IB, talking about the skills that they've learned. Which transdisciplinary theme are you studying? What did you learn about the world around you? What did you learn about the planet? The same in the MYP. Students are curious, particularly ages 11 to 14. They're very curious. Talk to them about what they're learning. And if you know the IB language, if you know the names, the subject, and the idea about the concepts and the context, then you can have a more meaningful conversation with them. By the end of the MYP, students are doing a personal project. You need to understand that this is a new thing. It is a 6 to 8 month piece of independent research, like with the diploma extended essay and the CP reflective essay. Students will be under pressure, and what can you do to support them? Providing them space, light, water, food, plenty of sleep. You know, these are all, they might sound like they're common sense, but if you have a knowledge of the program that they're studying, then you can predict when their needs will be greatest. Now, how about assessment? Speaking of stress and well-being, sometimes students can get quite stressed about assessment, and it can have an impact on well-being. Now, the IB is quite different to Cambridge, College Board, and others. It bases students on criteria. Students are assessed against criteria which you can see, you can read them anytime. So if your student reaches a particular level, the description will say they're able to do this, and to get better they need to do that. It's not based on what they do know or don't know, and it's definitely not based on what the student next to them does or does not know. And they're not put into a ranking order or placed into a bell-shaped curve. These are based on criteria that are published by the IB. The assessment is ongoing in all the programs. Formative assessment, where students are receiving feedback from their teachers and from their peer group in an ongoing manner. As well as summative assessments, there'll be end-of-unit assessments. And in general, what you'll see in all of these programs is that there'll be a range of different types of assessments, like tests. There will be tests and examinations, but on the whole, there'll be authentic, ongoing assessments. In other words, students will have the opportunity to demonstrate the skills and the knowledge and understanding that they've developed in the creation of some kind of a performance or a product, rather than a false type of regurgitation of knowledge, but actually using their knowledge and using their skills to create something, which takes you to the very higher orders of thinking. And of course, in the diploma program we have, and the CP, we know all about the examinations. There's a set of exams, highly reliable and very well recognized. Certainly they're accredited by authorities around the world. And that means that the IB diploma and the career-related program are the gateway to the top universities in the world, the absolute top universities. And some of the questions have been about universities. There's no statistics to say these number prefer these students or those students. Just bear in mind, if you go to the IB website, there's a lot of information about university acceptance. The top universities in the world value IB diploma students because of the skill set that they bring, because they've done the extended essay and TOK, which separates them. They know that what they're bringing onto their campus is a more rounded student than they may get from other systems where students haven't had the breadth of education or the character development that comes from studying in the IB Diploma Core, in the MYP, and so on and so on. They know that they're getting somebody who's bringing a lot more to their campus. But yes, the external assessment's there, and the MYP has an on-screen e-assessment as well. So it's very different to other systems. But there are many advantages to an IB education. And I should mention at this point that Fairgreen has done an amazing job in its very young life, from those days where I remember visiting at Dunecrest, all the way to the opening of the wonderful new campus and to the development of a thriving, rich community with a passion for all that's important in life, including sustainability. It's a great match with the IB because Fairgreen's now an authorised MYP school. It's about a month away from becoming authorised for the PYP, and it's in the process of working towards authorisation in DP and CP. And how do you know that an IB school is good? How do you know that what you think you're getting is what you get? Well, the IB has a very strict accreditation process. And as I say, Fairgreen has completed it pretty much for MYP and PYP and is going through it for the others. It's really hard to become an IB school. You've got to really, really be on the game. So you know if a school is an IB school, that they're really, really good. And that the IB bases all of its practice on the best current research. This is not just something that's made up out of the top of someone's head. It's really well researched. All teachers in IB schools have to attend IB official professional development, either online or face-to-face. So you know that the teachers in the school are going to be absolutely up to date with what they need to do. And as I said earlier, IB programs are recognized across the world. Universities across the world admire and like it. I can't tell you individual ones. You'd need to look on the IB website, but all the top ones in all the main countries that your children will go to. And because they're recognized internationally, this really helps with transitions. If you're moving your children from PYP to another PYP school, fantastic. But I know a lot of you may be in families where you do move around the world. And certainly moving between IB schools is no problem. Also, we find that if a student has to move from an IB school into a non-IB school, because of the style of education they've had, and you go to a country that maybe you don't have access to an IB education, the learners have become very adaptable and they're flexible, so they can actually accommodate a change quite well and quite quickly. Likewise, if your students are coming into an IB system from elsewhere, the transition can be quite easy, because what you'll find is that you'll never have an exact match when you move from one school to another. But with the style of learning, going back to those approaches to teaching, when you have an inquiry-based system, those students can actually help each other, they work with each other, and because it's so collaborative, they really do look after each other, and the transition does become easier than you might think. So there is a lot of research. As I said, the IB has a place on its website. I'll show you the link in a moment. You can find out lots about what the IB's research says their programs do, but they do actually, and there is plenty of evidence, outperform non-IB students in many skills that are important. They do have stickability, they're resilient, they're independent, and they do thrive. They do thrive. And there's a lot of research that you can read about this. But I'm not just saying that there are benefits to IB programs because I believe in it, and I do, but it's also because research backs that up, and you can read that research anytime yourselves. So, as we draw to a close, ultimately, an IB education is about developing global citizens. It's about developing global citizenship in our young people in a safe, warm relationship with the school and with teachers. The students' whole development is looked at, not just the cognitive, but their emotional, spiritual, social well-being. And this is done through a broad and balanced holistic education, where students are part of the learning process. It's not something that is done to them, but it's something that they are part of, and that they're able to negotiate their own way through it. And I believe that the IB education is the best that there is to develop global citizens. If you want to find out more about the IB programs, obviously there's the IB website, ibo.org. They have a special page called Information for Parents, which you may be interested in. They also have a blog. If you go to the blogs, there's lots of blog articles, but there's also many that are aimed at parents and written by parents. So you may wish to learn a little bit more there, and that site's useful. And then for anyone who has students who are in or near the IB diploma, there's a nice YouTube channel run by a former IB diploma student who graduated in Islamabad. She's Greek, she's called Eleni Vardaki. She's a lovely person, and she talks a lot about well-being and such matters for IB diploma students, and that might be interesting to you. So I will wrap up there. As a whistle-stop tour through the 4 IB programs, I think that your students, your children, couldn't have a better possible opportunity in life than to do the IB programs and in the caring, warm, loving atmosphere of Fairgreen. But that's just my opinion. Do you have any questions for me? And are there any of the questions that you asked at the beginning that I managed to avoid? Because I don't want to avoid questions. If you have any questions, please put them on the chat, and while Graham and team start to talk about Fairgreen, I'll happily answer any questions in the chat box.
Thanks very much, Malcolm. It's a real holistic view of a holistic program. And as Malcolm said, it's something that we all really believe in. And IB teachers are a little bit different. You know, we weren't, all of us, always IB teachers, but very few people go back from IB once they've transitioned into that program. So Malcolm will be here for a few more minutes if you want to ask him any questions. Thanks very much, Malcolm. It's always a pleasure to see you, despite the jokes about my age. I will try and get a few digs back when you've gone.
It wasn't a joke.
Oh dear, oh dear. Right, so we're going to move on to make this a little bit more specific about Fairgreen. So just give me 1 second. We're just going to transition over here, and I will tell you a little bit about our school. So there are obviously the way we're doing this is there's a great deal of synergy, as Malcolm said, between the IB philosophy and the mission and the Fairgreen mission as well. And that's not accidental, that's very deliberate. We set up Fairgreen to be a model IB school that would champion some of the ideals of the IB. So just a little bit about who we are as presenters. So I put this slide up there. It doesn't have me on it for two reasons. One, for obviously aesthetic reasons, but the other one, because the most important people in this picture are the two children on the outside are both IB graduates. So my oldest son, Nathan, I'm very proud of them both. He graduated, he actually finished his master's in forensic science yesterday and was booted out of his accommodation yesterday. So he's now come through he was an IB graduate, as I said, from the International School of Bangkok, finished his bachelor's in psychology, now finished a master's in forensic science. So if anyone has any jobs going, he's available. But what's interesting about him and my daughter Olivia on the far right, who was studying a bachelor's in international development and geography, they are both very much shaped by the IB. They're very much global citizens. One of the principles of the IB is, as Malcolm talked about, international mindedness and a gradual decline in egocentricity, I've heard it called. And I'll come on to that in a moment. But I'm married to Ali. Ali is our head of inclusion here at Fairgreen. She's been working in inclusive education for a long time now. And on the bottom there, interests, travel, sport, learning and Fairgreen. Another thing about IB educators is we never stop learning. We're always interested in research, whether that's research about learning, about well-being, about care. And it's something that sort of draws us together globally. There's a very active IB network of teachers and school leaders globally. We all keep in touch with each other. We all share best practice as well. As you can see, I've been in education, quite a long time, not as long as Malcolm, but around for a long time in many different countries, and find myself now in my second stint here in Dubai. So let me move on to Mr. Greenwood. You unmute yourself, please.
Thanks, Graham. Well, good morning, everyone, if it is morning where you are. Yeah, my name is Matt Greenwood. I'm the primary principal here at Fairgreen. Following Graham's lead, I've also left myself off the photographs there, but you can clearly see me anyway here live. Yeah, 26 years in education. Again, really a global family, lived and worked in many places. My two sons there in the photograph down there at the bottom, one born in Brunei, the other one born in Hong Kong. Over those years, taught many different curricula, including the PYP, actually, which is such a strong program. And as Graham said, there's such congruence between the IB programs and our mission and vision here at Fairgreen. So it is really, there's great synergy between the two. My wife there, Jackie, is our school counsellor here at Fairgreen, and I think that was taken on the occasion of her qualification as a teaching in tertiary education, actually, at university. She likes to stay a few qualifications ahead of me. So, so that's me and my family. I'm going to hand you over, I think, to Dave Gerber. Sorry, Seema.
That's okay. Good morning, everyone. A very warm welcome to our virtual open day. I'm Seema Desai. I'm the secondary principal, so I look after the MYP program and going to start looking after the DP and CP from next year onwards. So I've been in Dubai a really long time. I've taught in many parts of the world, very different curricula, but I am an IB educator through and through. I'm really passionate about the MYP, the opportunities that it offers our students. So if you have any questions that you want to ask specifically about those, please post them in the chat. Thank you very much. Dave, I think you're next.
Yep. Hi, everyone. My name is Dave Gerber. As you can see there, I'm the curriculum director. I actually love listening to Malcolm speak because the IB is, I think, part of my breakfast, lunch, and dinner. I started in the IB about 12 years ago and have been learning more and more. Even 12 years in the IB, I'll still learn something new every day. And that's really what the mindset of an IB educator and student really is. You can see some of my experience there. I kind of feel like I'm mixing my passions here at Fairgreen. I love traveling. I love being with international-minded people, as well as I'm a full advocate for sustainability and sustainable practices. Yeah, and I really look forward to answering any questions and really going through your learning journey with you. So, thanks.
Thanks, Dave. Okay, so we talked before about international mindedness, and I mentioned this decline in egocentricity. Now, if we walk into a pre-K or a KG1 or KG2 class, young children are naturally egocentric. That's completely normal. But the journey of international mindedness really starts there, because they're in a very warm community, but it's extremely diverse. We have over 60 nationalities here at Fairgreen. In fact, when you ask our children, what's your nationality? They'll give you a very strange look, because it's not a normal question for them. Mum might be Romanian, dad might be Turkish, and that's our norm, really. I feel very dull when I'm in this incredible diverse community here. But we promote international mindedness as a real part of the philosophy of the school, and it's about looking outwards. It's not about what's in it for me anymore. It's how can I support others? So in a kindergarten class, that might be learning to share a pencil or an eraser with the person on their table. Further up the school, it might be learning to share their cultural experiences or their opinions. It might be debating with each other. But IB students all the way through, it's about respect. And I don't like the word tolerance. For me, tolerance sounds like a passive acceptance of something. It's okay. Well, IB students are more than that. They're very curious about each other. They'll go out and ask great questions about each other's religion, each other's heritage and culture and background and families, because IB students are naturally curious. We teach as part of our curriculum Arabic and French here, but it's a real mission of the school to go beyond just those two languages and actually support many other native languages. So at the moment, we have German, Dutch, Turkish, Danish as after school classes. They are on pause a little bit at the moment as we navigate the way through this, because we're not allowed to have those sessions together due to the COVID situation, but we're looking to bring them online as Zoom or Skype sessions. But the idea is that we add many more of those so that our classrooms and our after school programs are truly international. Mr. Gerber.
Yeah, and so I think I'm hoping that as you're listening to what we're saying, you have the consistent message of purposeful education, I guess you would say. And we're using the purpose of education in the framework of sustainability. So on campus, we do have an urban farming room, and we do look at the solar power production. If you come on campus, we do have, right over the parking lot, we do have some solar panels, and on top of two of our buildings, they're covered with solar panels. So we're actually producing more energy than what we're consuming. And we actually involve the kids in that learning. So both the use of the urban farming room and our energy production here at the school are for scientific inquiry. I mean, the way that we learn is through asking questions, and then, you know, doing little tests here and there, and then, or building hypotheses. So we use all of the features that we have on campus to go through that process. And that's a really, really important thing about an IB education that may set us apart from other schools. And we do focus on sustainability, and not just environmental sustainability, so the love of the earth. We also focus on ourself and keeping and help and ensuring that we, as a healthy individual, is sustainable. So we do look at our well-being, we do look at mindfulness, and we do meditation practices to make sure that, you know, when we get in stressful situations, that we are able to handle those stressful situations. And then Malcolm was actually mentioning it a bit before, is that one consistent strand throughout the IB is service learning and going out into the community and having a positive impact on the community. And we do have the Million Solar Stars program, which we have planned on going to Kenya and going to Africa and helping to provide solar powers to some of the rural villages there. And so we actually look at what are some of the positive impacts that we can do with the community, but we have to learn some of those positive impacts first, and what is some meaningful things. I mean, we could have students going out and putting out flyers, but is that really meaningful action? So we really help the students to go through some of those processes of taking meaningful action with what you've learned at school. We can go to the next slide there too. There was a question in the chat room about robotics. And we do have a mindful approach to the use of technology. There's a great documentary out there called The Social Dilemma. And how much are our students on their computers or and using their screen? So we do allow technology, and we actually encourage the use of technology, but technology for a purpose. Again, so we do want to be mindful of not just replacing a notebook for an iPad, but we want to actually make sure that the iPad is enhancing the student's education, right? The coding is actually a great example. Is everybody going to be coding in the future? Probably not. But the thinking that goes behind the coding, kind of that testing inquiry, is the purpose for some of those coding practices. And we do have the coding from early on in the school until later. There is it's not specifically in there, but if you're familiar with STEM, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, that is a program that we start as early as possible with our students. And again, we're really trying to get to some of those, that design type thinking, and the cross-curricular type thinking. Not only do they have to use maths, but they also have to use a bit of humanities and understanding what people actually want. So it is a really good way of cross-curricular learning. Yeah. Thanks, Graham.
Hi everyone. So thinking about culture of care and well-being here at Fair Green, look, when we do tours with parents, they'll often comment on the kind of family atmosphere in the school, and that's not coincidence. We're very proactive in terms of promoting that culture of care. So we talk a lot with students about care for yourself, care for other people, and care for the planet. And this lines up beautifully with what Malcolm was saying earlier about the learner profile, because 4 of the attributes of the learner profile are caring, open-minded, principled, and reflective. And of course, all of those things fit beautifully with those 3 C's there. again, I say we're proactive in this because we've chosen very carefully an SEL program called Jigsaw, which was developed by Sheffield Hallam University. And that Jigsaw program runs throughout the school. And as part of that, the kind of tagline, if you like, for the Jigsaw program is that it's the mindful approach to social emotional learning. My wife, you may remember, she's the school counsellor, and I were both mindfulness teachers as well. And as Dave said, we tend to kind of introduce a few brief, simple mindfulness practices to help students with their focus, their attention, and also their self-awareness. So there are some key practices which we'll do as part of the Jigsaw program, and even in things like my weekly assemblies, that kind of thing. We have a virtual and an actual hub, wellbeing hub here in school, with lots of different aspects to that. So the virtual hub has videos that you can watch to help with well-being, also information about mindfulness programs, for example. And we have a well-being hub actually in school where in days before the current restrictions, teachers would take classes where they could teach their Jigsaw, for example. And actually my wife and I taught an 8-week program in mindfulness for our teachers. So it really is a whole community, a whole school initiative. Also, of course, not only mental well-being, but also physical well-being. And so we've got a carefully crafted PE program here, and we're hoping that our after-school programs, similar to the languages programs, can open up soon. But we have a full range of after-school programs for from PE to volleyball to basketball to tennis and swimming. So yeah, it really is a full well-being program here at Fairgreen. Okay, Graham, next slide.
Okay, so one of the programs that we offer that's a little bit different here at Fairgreen is our commitment to STEM, which is taught all the way through the school. So we have a STEM teacher who teaches in the PYP, MYP, as well as, we'll be offering it as a DP subject. And those skills in engineering, technology, and the integration of all of those is developed at a really young age. As you move up through, the higher grades in the secondary school, we now have a program which is called Design, Engineer, Construct, which is an amazing, delivery of technology, but really through project-based learning. So our children create and look at projects through real-life applications. So last year, before COVID hit, our grade 8 students had visits from the architect who designed the Sustainability Pavilion at Expo 2020, a young lady who was an engineer in the RTA, an Emirati lady, and they had the opportunity to discuss, how their careers had developed, and also to apply what they learned to what they spoke about to their actual learning. So it is just an incredible program that really looks at how to develop skills through the built industry. So we're very proud of that. And the idea behind that is that it then leads on into the last 2 years of secondary school. So we will be offering the diploma program, which Malcolm spoke about, but we're also very excited about the IB career-related program. And the skills that the children learn through DEC will be applied to the IBCP. So that's something that's just a little bit different from other schools in Dubai. Thank you.
Thanks, Seema. Just wanted to finish off really by sharing some highlights of our annual survey. So every May, we send out a survey to our students, our teachers, our parents, but you as parents and prospective parents would probably be more interested in the parent side of this. Now, I'll be honest, having shut down for COVID-19 in early March, I wasn't sure that I was looking forward to the results of the annual survey, because parents were under pressure. You know, we have a lot of parents, and we keep in touch with our parents very closely. We knew there were parents who were having 3 children at home, so trying to support them with home learning, while both parents were trying to work from home as well. Really, really challenging, tough times for people. So one of my wonderings, I guess, was, would our annual survey results be impacted by this sort of global situation that we're all in at the moment? Probably one of the most challenging of our lifetimes. So here are some results, and actually I needn't have worried because the results were incredibly positive. So the first question, the school's overall program meets my child's academic needs. 97% either agreed or strongly agreed. There were many questions, so I'm only going to show a very small sample of them, but that was a real good indicator to us that we were on the right track, and that we were challenging our students academically. High academic standards, 96% that agree or strongly agree. The school places sufficient emphasis on empowering students to become independent, critical thinkers. So that's one of the 6 C's that Malcolm talked about, 97%. If I'm honest, I think that figure's a little high. I still think in terms of critical thinking, we have some more work to do on that one, and that's one of our focuses for this year's professional development for our teachers. The next one, though, I think is absolutely accurate. The school places sufficient emphasis on teaching students to become responsible and caring global citizens. 97% agree or strongly agree. I think we take the plaudits for that one, because that's something we spend a great deal of time on. If you walk around the school and meet our children, they're the best example of this. They sell the school better than we possibly could. And they're amazing, caring global citizens. And when we look at some of the challenges that global society is facing now, we can get a little bit down and depressed about it. When we walk around the corridors and the classrooms of our school, that depression disappears, and we're filled with hope, because I think our planet is in really good hands if Fair Green students are any indicator of what the future society looks like. And just a comment from one of the survey results, Fair Green lives up to its promise of delivering a strong IB curriculum in a caring and nurturing environment. The next section, this was overall, which was sort of at the end of the survey. I'm satisfied with my child's educational experience at school, 91%. The school is seen positively within the wider community, 92% agree or strongly agreed, and none actually disagreed or strongly disagreed with that statement. This is always a big one. Would you recommend the school to friends and family who have children? We had 61% said, yes, I strongly agree with that. 30% agree, so that's 91% as a satisfaction rating, and 7% undecided. They just didn't know enough because they hadn't been in school long enough. So these are really positive figures for us. And just to finish, that quote, which I love, we love Fair Green. And this is actually a family who only joined us in January before the May, when the survey went out. Thank you to all for everything you do to make this school such a great place to be for my child and for us as parents. We can't wait for normal school life to resume. Still, in this unusual time, we are all the more grateful to be part of this community. Challenging times reveal true character, and we love what we're seeing at Fair Green. So it was really heartwarming for us to read, because these are challenging times. And one of the Fair Green pillars, which are really what makes us a special school, is about character development. And that's a big focus this year as well. How do we develop resilience in our children? So that's really about the end of our presentation. We're very happy to take any questions if you have any. We're also really grateful that you spent the time to join us today. And thanks very much, everyone. I'm just going to have a look in the chat room here to see if there's anything we haven't answered already. If you want to unmute yourself and ask a question, that's also fine. So we'll just give a few minutes for anyone.
Sorry guys, there was a question about the ISEE exam and do we support students in being able to take that exam? I had to look that up. It's the Independent Schools Entrance Exam, and yes, we do support students in making any transition. Like we live in a very global nomadic society right now, especially in Dubai. So wherever you're coming from or wherever you're going to, we help to support students and families in the transition. And right now, especially, I mean, we're a very small, close-knit community. So I would say we have conversations even as a leadership team. We have conversations with parents on a daily basis out as they're doing drop-off and pickup. So any type of support that you would need in making that transition, I think we can support.
Thanks, Dave. And just to follow up on what Dave said, one thing we know from research is that unmanaged global mobility, so children hopping around, moving from school to school to school, it can actually be detrimental to a child's education. But conversely, really well-managed mobility actually develops characteristics in children that are fantastic leadership opportunities. So there's a great bit of research that was published in the Harvard Business Review about the differences between when children just hop around without any thought given to those transitions compared to schools that actually are aware of the specific needs of third culture kids and how to support them, how to welcome them into a community. We have new students coming into our school all the time. I think we have almost 170 new students this year. And what's been beautiful is that our leadership team are on the gates every morning. So we like to be out there to welcome the children, to make sure the start of their day is a really positive one. When we walk around our school, it's really difficult to tell which are the new students and which ones have been with us from day one, because they settle so quickly. I know my wife works a lot with the very youngest children, the pre-K and the kindergarten children. And she said, this year is the only year that I haven't had to put my Nikes on. And what she means by that is the first couple of days of school, schools normally get kids who cry a lot, and we sometimes get the runners as well. So she has to strap on her Nikes ready to chase the ones who run away. There were no runners this year, and there were very few criers as well, not even our teachers. So we've had a very smooth start of the year, especially given the challenge that we're facing. So that management of transition and management of mobility is something that we have a level of expertise in, and we're very proud of here.
Graham, can I just jump in? There have been a few questions about universities and recognition with the IB. I just want to share a few stories with you. I had a student who was a really good diploma student. He'd gone for an interview at Oxford, and he probably wouldn't have met the grade requirements necessarily to be an Oxford University student according to their admissions protocol, but he took along his extended essay with him. Now, the extended essay is a piece of research that they do, which is 4,000 words. And during his interview, he presented this essay to the admissions officer, and they were so impressed with what he'd written, which was amazing, and they gave him an unconditional offer. So this would have been about 3 years ago. So, you know, the IB is really starting to be recognized, or continuing to be recognized, by top tier universities for preparing students for university. Another story I can give you is I met the admissions directors at Georgetown and Princeton, and I said, you know, what makes a diploma student or a CP student different from, you know, your AP, A-level students? They said, you know, Seema, we're Princeton, our students are really smart. However, the DP, CP students are ready to go. The skills that they learn with research, you know, being independent thinkers, independent learners, they said they're just ready to go from the day that they start university. So these are some of the skills that, you know, the IB really develops very, very well in our students from a really young age. So I hope that helps a little bit with some of the university questions out there.
Thanks, Seema. Thank you. Okay, I think if there are no further questions, it just leaves me really to thank Malcolm very much for such a great presentation, and Malcolm for your ongoing support and advice to Fairgreen as well. We wouldn't be where we are now without you, so a big thank you to you. And
Thank you.
Also parents, existing parents, it's great to see so many familiar names on here as well. We've got an amazing parent community here. We're so supportive, and it's been actually a great help to us in the lockdown that we went through from sort of March onwards, that because we'd built such a strong community, our parents were fantastic in not only supporting us, but in supporting each other and each other's children as well. So thank you to you and to any new prospective parents. Huge thanks to you for joining. We hope that you come and see us and you get in touch with Malik, who's our admissions director here. We'd love to continue growing our global community here. So thank you very much, everyone. Have a great day. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everyone. Nice to meet you all.